Youth development and empowerment, youth at risk, gender affairs, seniors security, and Dominicans with disability. And don't forget the Member of Parliament for St. Joseph. Last week, the government launched the Social Cash Transfer Assistance Program in conjunction with the World Food Program. The program will provide temporary income support to eligible vulnerable individuals and families whose income have been impacted by COVID-19. It will address basic needs including food, health, education, and other necessities. This complements our existing social programs to help our elderly, women, youth, and the unemployed. Also, during the 2020-2021 budget, I announced new measures to encourage our citizens to build their own homes. This included a reduction in land transfer fees to encourage citizens, especially young people, to invest in the purchase of properties and construction of the homes. To further assist, we set aside $1.5 million to support young people 40 years and under, whose annual income is less than $100,000, with a grant of $10,000. This can be put towards land transfer fees, purchase of building materials, or a new home. I am pleased to announce that we are ready to proceed with this homeowners grant. Dr. Alice King is here on this evening's annual parley to discuss with these two programs and the benefits for citizens. I would like to welcome Dr. King to the program. Thank you, Dr. King, for making the time to be here with me. And it's a pleasure to have you on. But before we go into your ministerial functions here this evening, because you're here primarily to discuss a couple of ministerial responsibilities, how are the great people of the St. Joseph constituency?
Good evening, PM. I just want to say thank you very much. It is indeed an honor to share this space with you. And I would like to take this opportunity to say a pleasant good evening to all the lovely folks in St. Joseph, and also to the staff of my ministry, the Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security, and Dominicans with Disability, and also our partners and divisions within the ministry. Right. I must say, I also want to take this opportunity to say very much thank you for giving me the opportunity and the privilege to serve with you. I know you've been an inspiration to every Dominican, and I am no exception, so I praise God every day that I'm given this opportunity.
Well, it's my pleasure. I mean, you know, you have certainly qualified yourself in the medical field, and I think Dominica, and I can say to you, the public, that I am very pleased with the enthusiasm that Dr. King has led this ministry, and very passionate about the issues confronting the senior citizens and especially people with disabilities. So for me, it's a distinct pleasure.
Okay. So PM, you know, the St. Joseph constituency is a very special place. You know, we have several different communities within that constituency, everyone special in their own way. We have St. Joseph, Layu, Miro, and the Bells. Coming into this, my vision has always been to transform all these communities, not only physically, but also to transform the lives of the individuals who live within this constituency. So some of my projects that I have in mind is mainly based on the resources that already exist within each community. For example, most part of the communities, we have the farmers. So that is why one of my first projects that I will be engaging in is the farmers market, which we will be building at St. Joseph. We are already in the advanced stages of the design, and we have decided to include also an area for the fisher folks. And so we will have storage facilities there as well. And also we'll also have conference facilities, because I do believe in ongoing training, skills training for our farmers, for our fisher folks, even for our fish vendors, so they can be better able to bring their business forward. So this will certainly be one of the first thing you will see coming up in the St. Joseph area. And
the location is still the land space by the playing field by Marfis Hall?
Right there, right across the river, the ravine from the gas station, right in front of Marfis Hall. That is an ideal situation. I've been there with the developer, and they think that we will be able to use this space quite effectively.
Well, let's go ahead. I mean, I'm giving my 100% support to this project. It's a project that we've spoken about for some years now, and it will be very wonderful for us to have it done finally. And as Minister of Finance, as you know, we give my full blessings to this project.
Well, I'm quite happy to hear that. I know the folks at St. Joseph will be very happy as well. Also, as you know, we have a vibrant farmers cooperative in Bells. And one of the things that they engage in is they would like to have a place to process their produce as well as storage. And I am glad to announce tonight that I do have somebody who's willing to finance at least the freezer. And so they have said to me that they are committed to a US $10,000 towards freezing facilities for the Bells farmers, and I know I'm quite excited about it. And I know, you know, the Bells Farmers Cooperative is made up mostly of women, so I am always happy when we get to empower our women.
Excellent, excellent. But certainly we'll have some other time to speak more in depth about St. Joseph and the number of things there. I have offered for us to have this sporting economic activity on the beach at Layo.
Yes.
And the government would like to sponsor this, beach football, beach volleyball, in the evening, creating economic opportunities there. Now, we're here to talk about the social cash transfer assistance program to assist vulnerable groups within our population, especially during this COVID-19 period. Can you describe to our viewers and listeners what are the general objectives of this cash transfer program?
As you know, PM, this government has always, our objective has always been to help the most vulnerable among us, to empower people. And one of the vital components of this social cash transfer is that we are going to support low-income communities and vulnerable individuals. And it is also designed to implement building on Dominica's main national assistance program. As you know, we have several of these. But some of the objectives would be, of course, to improve the well-being of our vulnerable households, especially those who were impacted by the COVID-19. It will also help us in alleviating some of the poverty, helping people get better access to health, as well as education. And we'll also be able to mitigate the negative socio-economic impact that COVID-19 has had on the vulnerable families and individuals among us. Most of this impact was due to shutdowns, curfew, loss of jobs, loss of income, maybe even reduction of income. So this money will surely go a long way in improving the lives.
That's excellent. Now, how was the program developed? And can you tell us which of the agencies that have been involved in securing this financing for Dominica this time? I mean, every little that we can get to pass into people is always welcome. And also, how is it to be administered?
Okay, PM. During the onset of COVID-19 back in March, CARICOM decided to launch a survey on food security and livelihoods among CARICOM countries. And this was conducted by the World Food Program. And Dominica participated. I think we had about 500 households participating in that survey. And we found out that there was severe impact on the livelihoods of our citizens. So because of that, some of the results of the survey that was brought to our attention was the fact that that because of restrictive movement of people, then the homes were left vulnerable, even more vulnerable than before. Many people lost their job. Many people incomes decreased. People, especially those who were involved in casual labor, the self-employed, people who were just doing cottage industry. And because of that, we decided to put a plan forward. So the government of Dominica, through the Ministry of Planning, and my ministry, the ministry mainly responsible for vulnerable people, the youth, the elderly, the people with disability, we decided to put together a concept note to justify a project where we would help our people and we could implement this mechanism. And we were greatly supported by the World Food Program, and also we had the program being funded also by UK Aid.
Okay.
And so we brought this together, and we decided to administer it in a way where the people we knew for a fact were impacted by COVID-19 could benefit, as well as we would do a little research to go around the island in different communities and find out other people that were impacted, so they as well can be part of this.
Now, what specific needs of our vulnerable populations will this cash grant address?
Of course, the needs we expect it to address is food security, also access to health, access to medicine. Sometimes we have our poor people out there, there are medicines that they need, and but maybe they had a daughter that was working that was able to buy the medicine, but now this daughter has been impacted because of COVID-19. So right now we can give them this money, it can go through this, can also help them get educational material for their children.
Okay. So a number of benefits.
A number of benefits.
Very good. Now let's talk about who stands to benefit from this program. I've heard you say in the public domain that those persons who already enrolled in the public assistance program will automatically benefit. Why is that so?
PM, well, research has shown that usually during any crisis, the people that are already vulnerable become more negatively impacted. So that is why the people that are already on the public assistance programs, and these are people that are really, our elderly who usually don't have any children to take care of them. We have our single mothers. Sometimes they get no maintenance for their children. They have several children. We have our female-headed households, where they don't have a man there to help them in any way, and the kind of jobs they can get are not well-paid jobs. We also have the people with disabilities, people who have gotten stroke, or people who are born with disability, or they become disabled through an accident. We have our people that are neglected, the elderly people that are just there in their home. Maybe some neighbor will watch out for them to give them a plate of food. So these are the people, our foster children, where probably orphans who has nobody, and they were forced to be taken into a home, but the home take them in, but then we still need to give them the necessary resources to take care of them. So these are the people on the public assistance program. So in a time like this, when they become even more affected, we think so, and based on data that we have already gotten, as well as with the World Food Program, we realize these people are more vulnerable at this time, and this is the justification why we think they should be part of it.
So they don't have to apply?
No. These people don't have to apply. They automatically qualify. They're already in a database, and they already qualify, so they don't have to apply. Who needs to apply are the people who are not on this program.
And who are these people?
Mostly we think about the people who were impacted by COVID-19, people with cottage industries, small business people who were not able to qualify for the grants or loans at Social Security or
So my friends in Wharton Waven and Trafalgar who depend on tourism and the sale of produce of stuff could apply, and those in the Bayfront?
Yes, certainly, because as you know, tourism, the area of tourism was more severely impacted than any other area. So these people will surely, and even like the fisher folks, because of the curfew, they were not able to go out and fish. So they were impacted, and even like the fish vendors, the small craft people on the Bayfront, like you say, they too will be able to apply and qualify. People with disabilities that are not yet on the public assistance program.
Okay, and what are the qualifying conditions?
Well, first of all, we are going around to different communities to register people. Obviously, you're going to have more people being registered than those that actually qualify. So, first of all, like we said, those already on the public assistance qualified. Other people are people who lose their jobs and earnings during COVID-19, or even before COVID-19. If you can show that you are in a vulnerable position, elderly, disabled, probably you large families with not enough income to support at this time, these are the people that will qualify.
So as I say, we're going to go, your ministry is going national with this, and therefore you expect a number of applications, as you're saying. But how will your ministry go about determining who will eventually benefit?
Well, it's a joint effort between the ministry and the World Food Program. So we are registering everybody who comes to get registered. But at the end, we will put in a committee to verify. Also, there will be a process of verification of the information received, and we will be using the people in, like the village council chairmen, the teachers, the religious leaders to verify information. Even on the application form, we're asked to put in somebody that can verify that, yes, that you live in this, yes, these are your conditions. And then the committee will go through all these this application after the verification process is over and decide who qualifies to actually receive the transfer.
And how does one apply? I mean, where do we get forms? Forms in the village councils, constituency offices?
Well, you will know that over the last week, we did employ a total of 30 individuals who are enumerators, and so they are doing on-site registration in different areas. Okay. We publish a list of the different locations they're going to be and the dates. So this is, you can find this information on socialprogram.dominica.gov.dm. You can also register online on that website as well, or you can call in. We have several numbers. You can call the ministry. The numbers are 616-3473 or 613-7325 or 612-8420, 612-8446. So there are operators there standing by from Monday to Friday between the hours of 9 and 5, and you can call in and they will help you fill in the form, and they can do an over the phone application for you.
Okay. Now, and of course, somebody could apply on somebody's behalf. I mean,
but of course, yes, because we have a lot of our vulnerable people that are unable to really have a phone conversation. They certainly can't apply online, and they might not be able. They might be bedridden. They certainly can't go to the area. So you can have somebody apply on your behalf.
Okay. I'm told we have a call. Hello. Good evening, please.
My PM, you can call me after the program. I am waiting.
All right.
Call me after the program.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. Now, it's been 1 week since the applications are out. How has been the response?
Oh, it has been tremendous. We've been to several areas, to include Vickers. We were 2 days in the stadium in town, where people came from all across the island. We've been to Grand Bay, to Eggleston, to Point Michel. And as of Friday, there were 2,440 persons who have already applied to the program.
It's a huge number. And so, someone registers. What happens after you're registered?
Okay. So after registration, they will select the beneficiaries, and it all depends on the household. And it will depend on their income status, their vulnerability, and then there, like I said before, there'll be a verification process, and then once that is done, we will start deciding who qualify, and there'll be distribution of the funds in different forms. It could be through bank transfer, or in case of people with difficulties, we will try to get them the cash.
Okay. And so the funds are distributed how? How do you get the funds to the approved applicant?
Okay. So our preferred payment method, especially in this COVID time, would also always be cash or bank or bank transfer. So we have to bear in mind the social distance guidelines. We will do that, or we will transfer it to the village councils for distribution.
Okay. Now, this is not the first time we have collaborated with the World Food Program to assist our citizens. Can you tell us quickly, briefly, about the relationship between Dominica and the World Food Program?
Actually, we've had a long-term relationship with the World Food Program, and they have been very, very supportive just when we launched this program, the director of the OECS, of the World Food Program was here, Mr. Regis, and he was very excited to be in Dominica because they were here after we were impacted heavily by Hurricane Maria. The World Food Program had this joint emergency cash transfer with UNICEF. And at the time, we were able to impact 8,000 of the poorest households here in Dominica. And this went a very long way, to the point that when Dominicans hear World Food Program, they get excited because they know they've been our partners. They've been very helpful in helping us take care of our most vulnerable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I recall very vividly their involvement in our response to the hurricane. They were very helpful, brought in quite a bit of support. But one of the very important things they brought was a good, transparent management system of the delivery and the distribution of the food supplies and other material support to our citizens after Hurricane Maria. Now, let us shift gears a bit, Dr. King. In 2020-21 budget, I announced that government would provide support in the form of a grant of $10,000 to young people 40 years and under, to encourage them to own a piece of property in Dominica or to build a home, all in an effort to empower our young people. Can you tell us when will this initiative of the Homeowners Grant will officially come into being, please?
Well, PM, very soon, actually, it will become in effect from October 1st, 2020. And I must tell you that we have been generating a lot of interest. Right now, you might find over 100 letters at the ministry of people inquiring about this 10,000 grant. The young people are quite excited, and it's actually encouraging them to want to build their homes.
So 1st of October?
1st of October.
And it won't take people months before they get their response or they get the check?
Certainly not.
Okay. That's a criticism of the government system. You know, it takes a long time for people to get from application to having the check in their hand. Hello, caller, please. Good evening.
PM.
Hi.
I would like to know when the housing going to start for Bells.
Bells. Well, I can answer for her. I think we're ready to start. I have given the all-clean cabinet last week, and Dr. King has a list of vulnerable families, and I have instructed the Ministry of Housing and the Power Rep to move mass rapido to get the wonderful people in Bells and build proper homes, you know.
Yes.
Concrete roofs, you know, properly tiled and with electrical works and water and sanitation. Do something wonderful for the great people of Bells. So I'm with you, Nat. I'm hoping to visit in Bells.
Yes.
Once we start, we're to start. I'm hoping we can start next month, early October. In this. Now, who is eligible to apply, and what are the application requirements?
Okay. First of all, you must be a citizen of Dominica and must be resident in Dominica. You should also be below the age of 40. That was part of what we decided. Your annual income should be less than $100,000. You must be a first-time owner of a home. So people who already have a home will not qualify under this program to help build a second home. So it must be your first-time homeowner. We have people to verify the information as we go along. For example, we'll be using the Village Council chair people and the Justice of Peace. Also, the individuals must have an approved plan by the planning division. Because, you know, in Dominica, sometimes we just go ahead and say we're building and we start to build, but they must have an approved plan. They must have proof that they have the finance to construct the house or to purchase the house. Because you can either get the grant if you want to build or if you want to purchase a property. Your new home, you must, if you are purchasing, you must have an intent to sell from the seller.
Okay.
So you can't just say that I'm going to buy a house. You have to have a letter from the seller saying that, yes, I intend to sell to this person. we also have to ensure that you own the property where you're going to build.
Okay. So people like Chad George and Daryl Teat, who both will be engaging in holy matrimony by the end of this year, can apply and to build their own homes, moving in the new family and so on.
Yes.
Now, there's a WhatsApp message. Good night, Prima. I don't hear anything about single fathers. I agree with you, you know. I agree. What about us? I wanted to interject when Dr. King said single mothers and so on, because there are quite a few single fathers out there. As a matter of fact, I know of a couple of fathers who took their mothers to court for child maintenance. So we have to watch this this nomenclature, and we will say single parent headed household. So we capture the men and the women. I agree with you, boss. Okay, I'm with you on that. So, under what conditions will be the grant made available?
Okay, so like I said, we're going to start on October 1st. And once you have met the criteria, the monies are already there, they are available. Once you meet the criteria, then we will provide you with the check.
And then this is a major plus. It's a first-time initiative of that nature that the government has launched. As you know, the government has engaged itself in a number of initiatives towards allowing citizens to own their own home and to own a piece of Dominica, with the provision of low interest rates at the Government Housing Loan Board, low interest rates at the aid bank, building of homes in various parts of the country, subsidizing the sale of those lots across Dominica. But from your perspective as a minister for youth empowerment, this is a major plus for the youth empowerment. What do you see are the likely benefits of this to our young people?
Well, PM, as you know, having your own property, the kind of feeling that comes with it, there's no other way to explain it. And our young people in Dominica, I think we have a lot of intelligent people, a lot of people that are willing to go the extra mile. And I think empowering them this way to let them know that they can reach anywhere they want to in life. And we as a government, we are creating the environment for this, not only in the household, at the household level of owning a home, but also in providing educational opportunities. And sometimes we have our young people come back from studying after being given a scholarship by this government, and they just need to have the environment where they know that they can thrive. And I think what we seek to do is empower them in this way, because some of them, sometimes you have young people wanting to build, but they do not have that extra push. And I think the fact that we are decreasing on the transfer fees of properties, together with the fact that we're giving you a $10,000 grant, this is making young people think, literally think, yes, I can build my house. I can build my house. And I think that we're really giving them the opportunity to do just that, make that decision. Because
we've lowered the transfer fees by no less than 40%. So that's 40 cents on every dollar that person is saving. And that can be significant if you're talking about a mortgage of $400,000. So one can appreciate these things, or property of $400,000. Now, as we wind down the discussion, are there any particular initiatives your ministry is working on as well?
Yeah, my ministry is working on several initiatives. I don't think the time we have would be enough, but I just want to focus on a few of them. For example, we have the Enhancing Capacities and Consciousness of Vulnerable Communities, especially women and youth, to achieve climate resilience project. And within that project, we will be spending $25,000 through the Bureau of Gender Affairs to help empower women to face adversities, to face different disasters at the time it comes. So part of this would be like psychosocial support to our different people who are survivors of gender-based violence. We are also going to have training and workshop to promote community mobilization against gender-based violence. And we are going to, within this, provide care packages for all our vulnerable persons. On another part of this, we will have also another cash transfer program under the Engender project. And this cash transfer will be aimed at 500 homes in Dominica. And we've sat and we've discussed it, and the committee thinks that we should impact as many families as possible. And we are going, and because we want to impact as many individuals as well, we are looking at huge families. So within several constituencies through the Ministry of Constituency Empowerment, 500 US cash transfer will go to these huge families, and so we can impact as many individuals as possible. And this will take place before next month.
Okay. Oh, excellent, excellent. So let's push, let's make it efficient, because there's a criticism that's always leveled against the government. We make the announcements and sometimes it takes a little while to get there. We are being asked here by WhatsApp, it says, a good night. Please don't forget about us musicians. We haven't been getting gigs. The same goes for DJs. Many of us are breadwinners for our families, and this will can apply.
Of course.
For the.
Of course.
For this.
I encourage them to apply. They can apply online. They can apply by calling in.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they are in fact catered for. We have to apply. I really want to thank you, Dr. King, for making the time. You know, a young person making a tremendous contribution to the national development. You left your very comfortable job as a consultant physician, and to come forward to represent the people of the St. Joseph constituency. This is a major decision, a major sacrifice that you're making for the greater good of the country, and I hope that our wonderful people in the St. Joseph constituency are appreciating this. I can say as the Prime Minister and of course the leader of the Dominica Labour Party, I am very grateful for people like yourself who have made themselves available to nation building, and whatever support I can provide to you at the ministry level and at the constituency level, I am at your disposal. Thank you, Dr. King. Any final words you want to share with us?
Yes, PM, I want to thank you as well for giving me the opportunity. I always say that I was given an opportunity to become the person that I am, and I think it's my time to give back, to serve. I remain the humble servant, not only of the people of the St. Joseph constituency, but the entire nation. And I always encourage people to come to me, feel free, whatever their problems might be. I am very happy to be in a ministry where I can serve the most vulnerable among us. And I just want to say thank you, and I wish to continue to serve in this capacity.
Sure. Don't forget Mero, okay? The youngsters in Mero, who we have to do some things for. We need to build this community center for them, so that they don't have to be relying on the church to have the meetings and so on. I want us to do this for the people of Mero. But thank you, Dr. King, and of course we shall take a break and we'll come back to speak about electoral reform. Thank you very much. On the Dailies PD7 Road, you know, as we all recall, some 5 years ago of the unfortunate disaster, Tropical Storm Erica, and the decision to relocate the entire community of PD7 to now Bellevue Chopin, where people have been comfortably resettled at a significant cost to the state. The PD7 is not a place that anyone should consider for continued habitation. It is not safe, and based on the extent of the impact of Tropical Storm Erica. But we've also always maintained that there are opportunities for continued agricultural practices, especially with regards to the bay oil industry, and that people can continue to harvest their bay leaf and to make some economic activity, but not for habitation. And we've always maintained that at some point in the future, we would give consideration to the reopening of the roadway, and that's what we'll be doing. Persons who would like to do the agriculture and engage in that practice can continue to do so. And so we're very pleased with the efforts of the ministry and of course the public for Dailies, and it looks like the people of Dailies are happy about this, and they're welcoming it because it also facilitates them to sell their agricultural produce in Bacatel and Fort Saint-Jean, and of course on the Grand Bay side, and also to facilitate the fishermen from Fort Saint-Jean and Stowe as easier access to sell their fish. Obviously, the government has to be careful about how much it spends on this road because there are other challenges in the country, especially with regards to COVID-19 and the impact it has negative impact it has had on our economy and of course the economies of the entire world. The first order of business is to allow for vehicular traffic and access in thoroughfare, and I think we're doing that, and then we will see what else will need to be done for the further enhancement of it. And so I'm very pleased with the efforts of the heavy equipment operators and the Ministry of Public Works and the Minister, and of course the two power reps, Dr. Daru and Honorable Kent Edwards. So very pleased, and of course we have many residents from Daly's here who are proponents of the reopening. And I'm very happy to be here, and of course the proprietor of Jungle Bay, and we have been in discussions with Sam Raphael about the likelihood of creating jointly with the government and the people of Daly's some kind of investments to enhance the economic opportunities in that part of the country that is so dramatically needed, and whatever support the government will be able to provide to Mr. Sam Raphael to realize that investment, the government will certainly commit itself, as we've done in a joint partnership with the redevelopment of Jungle Bay. So we're very happy to be here. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. Electoral reform has, for many years, been at the forefront of national political discourse. Public interest in this matter remains high, and I believe it is an issue that deserves our attention. In December 2019, I committed the government to the establishment of a national commission to give guidance to electoral reform in Dominica. The government of Dominica has since approved the appointment of renowned Caribbean jurist, Sir Dennis Byron, to perform the important function of review and to make recommendations for the reform process. I have previously identified the need for the full engagement and inclusion of opposition interests in this process and asked for cooperation of all stakeholders in the national interest. It is my view that the appointment of Sir Dennis Byron takes the matter out of the political sphere and ensures a level of transparency and impartiality in the process. I look forward to the full participation of all citizens in the process as we endeavor to bring resolution to this long-standing matter. Today, I have invited Attorney at Law, Mr. Lennox Lawrence, to help bring some perspective on the actions we need to take to secure electoral reform. Mr. Lawrence is also a member of the Electoral Commission. You're welcome, as usual, to call in with your questions and comments. The numbers to call are 225-3400 and 611-3400. Mr. Lawrence, good evening and welcome to Anupali.
Good evening, PM. Thank you for inviting me to the program. Is it becoming one of the most popular programs on the island?
Have you been interviewed by a Prime Minister before?
You know, I have never been.
No, you have never been. But you're a media man and so on. So well, nobody asked the questions back in the days.
Well, I used to ask the question. Right now, I'm answering the question. Even in my profession, I am accustomed to ask the questions.
Yeah.
But I'm not very good at answering, but I'll try tonight.
Very good. But thank you for making the time. I know it's Sunday and normally people are relaxing, getting ready for a long week ahead. Now, this matter of electoral reform has been in the public's agenda for several years. We have taken several actions of government towards electoral reform, dating way back in February of 2011, when this Labour Party government, informed the President of the intention to introduce a national ID card. Why do you believe this process has taken so long?
PM, I think the process has taken a long time because the issue of electoral reform goes beyond just an ID card. The Commission has, of necessity, to relate with the Parliament. And there has been a lot of setbacks to the government's attempt to get the legislation before Parliament. From 2011, the government, as you indicated, has started. The Commission, in June, I think, of 2011, gave its indication that it had no objection to the process continuing. And there has been interface between the Electoral Commission and the President's office. At some point, the government indicated it will give the budgetary allocation to get the process started. And there are a number of dates which are relevant. I think the 2015 date is also relevant when the Cabinet directed that the bill be prepared to amend the Registration of Electors Act and the House of Assembly Elections Act. So the process of Parliament could be really engaged in the matter. Then we came fast forward now to 2017 when the government attempted to get the amendment into the Parliament. And that was frustrated because of a number of action by opposition elements. And the fact is, unless you have the parliamentary intervention and the amendments being made, the process could not be completed because the process involves much more than the giving of an ID card. The fact of the matter is the Commission's jurisdiction and power and authority is legislative. And unless the legislation, which is the enabling instrument, is passed in the Parliament, nothing can happen. In fact, when in 2015, you might recall, there were some gunshots which were heard outside the Parliament, and 2 days later, you as Prime Minister...
In 2017.
In 2017, yes.
Yeah.
You as Prime Minister had to indicate to the Speaker that you were withdrawing the bill from further debate.
Because, I mean, and also in 2017, the government made available to the Commission in excess of $2 million.
That is correct.
So all of the hardware and the software are in place at the Electoral Commission. Also, additional staff were provided, a public relations officer to inform the public of the process were also done. But what do you think would have been some of the causes of the delays in implementing the system? So you're saying that you can have all of this equipment and all of this staff. If you do not have the legislation, then the process
will not continue. The Parliament must approve the legislation because the fact is the Electoral Commission could not act without the Parliament giving it authorization, and that was what was frustrated in 2017. And then in 2018, you will recall the government attempted again to get legislation before the Parliament, and there was the 13 clause legislation, I call it, and 9 of those clauses were challenged by a number of persons. If you have a legislation with 13 clauses, then you go to challenge 9. Effectively, and they were seeking an injunction to injunct the Parliament from being able to debate the very question that will give, or the very instrument that will give the Electoral Commission the power to proceed with what it had to do.
I know people have said, look, okay, Skerrit, you have the majority in Parliament. The government has the majority. You could have gone ahead in 2017 and passed the legislation. But I've always held that the issue of changes to our electoral laws, is so important that it requires some level of understanding and participation from the opposition and from a wide cross-section of the population. So we did not go ahead with it because of the protests outside, but more fundamentally to give an opportunity for further consultation and so forth. Now the attempt to, the decision to place an injunction on the process, how would you have interpreted that, though?
Well, that was a clear attempt to frustrate the process out of the Parliament. It is difficult, even as an attorney, for me to understand how one would seek to injunct the Parliament from seeking to pass laws, because under the Constitution, the Parliament has the constitutional right to pass laws for the peace, order, and good governance, and electoral reform will come under good governance. So how does one seek to have electoral reform, and when an act is being proposed to enhance good governance with respect to the electoral process, you go to injunct that particular measure?
There's some in your position who believe that the Commission on its own, without legislative authority, can effect the reforms that we're proposing. You're a lawyer, I'm not. I mean, Is that possible?
It's not possible, PM, because under the Constitution, and I have the Constitution here with me, and the relevant section is Section 38 of the Constitution. It says the Electoral Commission shall be responsible for the registration of voters for the purpose of electing representatives and for the conduct of elections of representatives and senators. And the critical part here, it says, and shall have such powers and other functions relating to such registration and elections as may be prescribed by law. There must be law. The Parliament has to enable or empower the Electoral Commission to do that particular function. And if you seek to frustrate the Parliament, then you're in effect frustrating the Commission.
Now, let us seek to take this matter forward and you know, and some of the things that you believe should be done. Firstly, when we talk about electoral reform, we're mainly concerned about with the cleansing of the voters list and the provision of ID cards. But electoral reform is much broader than this and takes much more into consideration. How do you define the process of electoral reform, though?
See, PM, the process of electoral reform has to do with the effective administration of a system that would enable the citizens to exercise their franchise. And so it goes beyond just the giving of ID card or the cleansing of the list. It has to do, for example, with how persons in the diaspora who are Dominicans can exercise their franchise. It also has to do with the manner in which it is exercised. It has to do with the issues, the topics, for example, that would now be included in electoral offenses. And in my view, the issue of this malicious and criminal defamation that has been levied on a number of persons, and you and others have taken the matter to court, that in my view, those matters have to be considered now as electoral offenses. So one may have to the issue is much broader than just the cleansing of the list and the issuing of ID cards.
Now, we have also had a long debate in this country in respect to whether we go to a voter ID card or whether we go through with the national ID card. Where do you stand on this matter?
My view, PM, is that a national ID card is what is really prescriptive. Something like the St. Lucia model, for example, where you can use the card for traveling in the region. You can also use the card for other non-election matters, because it does not, in a small economy like ours, and you're the Minister of Finance and you know better than I do, that the government does not have the resources at large to spend on every single item. And certain matters can be combined. So if one can have an ID card that is combined, for example, for voting, for traveling, and other official ID purposes, that seem to me to be the better use of money.
Yeah, I agree on this, but also we studied a number of countries which originally had voter ID cards, and they moved away from it and moved into national ID cards. So we felt also that, look, if we're going to do this thing now, and countries have done this many years ago, and they're now moving from voter ID card to national ID card, then why not go with it now, rather than going in voter ID card today and tomorrow morning you have to spend an additional sum to do the shift.
You see, because PM, the fact is, the ID card, its purpose really is to be able to identify a voter and to prevent double voting or fraudulent voting. The reports from the Commonwealth that we have that have been compiled on the elections in Dominica have indicated that there has never been a single report of fraudulent voting in Dominica. And in Dominica, where we have small communities, almost everybody know each other. And if someone does not know you, there is a system in place that guarantees that you can take an oath, or there are other forms of certifying that you are the voter.
And I mean, and every candidate has the right in law to have an agent.
That's right.
In every polling station within that constituency.
That's right. And you can challenge someone when they're about to vote, to exercise their franchise. So to spend money on that single purpose, when one can combine that process with other measures as well, as I indicated. You may have to go to the bank, you need an official ID. These days, some institutions require 2 official IDs, so you'll have your driver's license and your national ID card. It seems to be a better use of money.
Now, one of the key issues in the debate on this electoral reform is the rights of the diaspora to vote. Do you believe that Dominicans living abroad should be afforded the rights to participate in the electoral process of our country?
Clearly, PM, they should be permitted. The law, as it is, and as I understand it, is that the Constitution gives you the right to vote. There was a case that the opposition liked to mention, the case in St. Kitts, the Mark Brantley case. And the court said in that case that the right to vote has constitutional implications. And the law on voting should seek to enfranchise as opposed to disenfranchising people. What it means is that our laws must ensure that the maximum amount of persons who are on the register to vote, that they can indeed exercise the right to vote. Now, there is a more recent case in Canada, where the courts are saying that the 5-year limitation restriction is unconstitutional. And so one is looking now at issues of connection to the country.
So are you of the view that this ticklish point of the 5-year requirement that determines eligibility for voting, should we keep this or should we remove this?
No, we should remove this. That's my view. We should either remove it altogether or we should extend the period. So, for example, we could look at a 10-year period, but with other considerations. Does the person, you say, because in the Canadian case, PM, and one should look at that, in the Canadian case, the court was saying that the right to vote, it started off by persons owning property. And before 1951, when we got the franchise, the universal right to vote, your right to vote depended on how much property you had, or if you had a certain minimum amount of property in Dominica. So persons like you and I couldn't vote.
No.
Because it was, Mr. X or Y, the Wobug, who could vote. So the fact, and so the Canadian court was saying that because the right to vote was tied to property rights, and persons who had property would, within that 5-year period, they would be in the jurisdiction exercising rights over the property. And if they left and they were not there within 5 years, it was almost like they had abandoned the property and abandoned their ties to the state.
I see.
That is how this 5-year thing came about. Now, the fact is, we have a number of persons who have migrated for better economic possibilities, but they're in connection with the country.
They have
remittances.
They have accounts in the banks.
Exactly.
So we want their money, but we don't want them to.
We don't want them to vote. On the other hand, someone from the Commonwealth, someone could leave Australia.
That's right.
And come to Dominica, and after 1 year of residence, they can vote.
Yeah.
But so this foreign person could vote, and one would want to
even contest elections. Too.
Exactly. But one would want to prevent a Dominican who has been in connection with Dominica, sending remittances, caring for their families, even sending for their families to get immigration status in those countries. So in my view, that 5-year limitation is archaic, it's unnecessary, and should be removed from the laws.
Now, government has announced the engagement of Sir Dennis Byron to lead the electoral reform process. I mean, we have heard quite a bit said in the last 2 weeks concerning the appointment of Sir Dennis Byron as the sole commissioner. People have accused the government of breaching the Constitution. How do you interpret the government's actions to appoint Sir Dennis Byron as a commissioner?
Well,
has the government broken the law?
No, the government has not broken the law. In fact, the government has done something which is very complimentary. Sir Dennis, if one understands who Sir Dennis is, Sir Dennis is possibly the most eminent Caribbean jurist in the last century. There is no one with a better profile from the, I mean, we have appeared before, and I have appeared before him here. He was the Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. He went to an International Court of Justice. He was also the President of the Caribbean Court of Justice. When someone comes with that profile, I cannot see how one can question the wisdom in government's engagement or engaging him as a commissioner to assist with the process. Because, you see, PM, the fact is, the Electoral Commission, it can be greatly assisted by the sort of report that will be generated by Sir Dennis. The capacity that Sir Dennis would bring to the table, the sort of engagement he would have, and the independence of Sir Dennis. In my view, the government has to be complimented. The government has done nothing wrong, and the commission will greatly benefit from the work of Sir Dennis.
I mean, we identified Sir Dennis because we're satisfied that, you know, the level of integrity that he has and the respect, both regionally, internationally, and as you said, the independence with which he deals with matters. I don't think this country could find anybody more eminently qualified than Sir Dennis and to carry this function.
What I thought very interesting, PM, is that in this dispensation is the government who is now proposing measures of electoral reform. Unlike in the past, where the government was being asked about electoral reform, the government now is taking the initiative on electoral reform. And that might have been part of the surprise.
But the point is, we made the announcement, I made the announcement in December of 2019 of the possible engagement of Sir Dennis Byron. That was at the inauguration of the cabinet, the swearing-in ceremony of the cabinet. And there were no dissenting voices. But as I said, I remain true to the process. I believe the country needs electoral reform. And what we need now is an impartial voice to say to us, these are the actions which you must take to effect that which you wish to achieve. And my hope and prayer is that when these recommendations come, all of us, including government, will accept these suggestions and move forward with it and allow the Electoral Commission now to come in to do what it has to do. Now, before we go into the next question, I would like to invite callers. The numbers are 225-3400 and 611-3400. So 225-3400, 611-3400. I have been told we have a caller on the line. Hello, good evening. Nobody, okay. Now, shouldn't we make it a distinction between the work that Sir Dennis Byron is expected to undertake and the functions of the Electoral Commission? Of course, which is the Electoral Commission is charged with the administration of elections.
You see, the way I see it, and I understand it, is that Sir Dennis will act more in a consultative role. Sir Dennis will meet the various interest groups, the relevant persons here, where the government, the opposition, civil society, and whoever he considers to assist his work. Sir Dennis is not the one who's going to look at voter registration, who is not going to look at the conduct of elections. That is for the commission to do. But the work of Sir Dennis would inform the commission, particularly, for example, on the issue of the diaspora vote, which I hope will be a matter that will be considered. And I'm also hoping that it will also consider the issue of expanding the electoral offense provisions to take care of this malicious defaming of people's character. Because one tries to serve the country and would make sacrifices to serve. And then you have certain media elements or certain persons who would seek to tarnish that person's reputation so sorely or so sordidly that when the person leaves the electoral service, the public service, their name is affected so badly, and that is done without justification or without reason or excuse. And it would seem to me that the time might have come when we should look at this culture of defaming, whether by agents, by candidates or their agents, in destroying people's character just to get a political advantage, then that should be, in my view, considered to be an election offense.
Now, last election, we would have had to consider time limitations to implement the reforms and the efficiency and efficiently conduct of our elections. We do not have this time around the time constraints that we had leading up to the elections. What can we expect to take place over the next 4 years after we would have received the report from Sir Dennis Byron?
Well, what I'm hoping would happen is that we could put a timetable, an agreed timetable of implementation. So we could say for the first 3 months, these are the objectives that we wish to attain within the next 3 months, the first 6 months. And after 1 year, we could have a 1 year review to see what we have done, because we would want that when we go into the next cycle, that all of the suggestions would have been implemented, inclusive of the issue of the diaspora vote.
Okay. We have a phone call, please. Hello.
Good evening, PM.
Hi, good evening to you, sir.
And good evening to Council.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, I have a question for PM and a question for Council. PM, has Dennis Byron given you any idea as to how he plans to conduct the work he's supposed to do here?
Go ahead with the second question.
Okay, because the comment follows because so Dennis is being attacked and they are not even spoken to anybody, I think. Secondly, Council has just speak there already Canadian legislation. I recall not long ago there was a Canadian lawyer who was here, and he seemed to give comfort to the other side, suggesting that Canadian law does not apply to Dominica. And let's explain to our listeners how Canadian law from a Commonwealth country applies to us in Dominica.
All right, thank you, Colin. Now, with regards to the first question, I have left it to Sir Dennis to decide how he is going to go about with the consultative process. And the list of people or organizations and entities who he will engage. So I do not want to place any restrictions on his engagement and his work. So I've left it to him. The truth is, I sincerely would hope that we can bring this matter to a close in the greater interest of the country. And this is why we've put in the resources and we are engaged Sir Dennis. And notwithstanding the COVID period, I mean, we are pursuing this electoral reform during the COVID period. When there are other very important matters of the welfare and well-being of our citizens, people are out of work, businesses are still closed, people are working less days than they would have otherwise prior to COVID. Businesses are trying to recover. People now have to, the grace period for the payment of mortgages are over, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm leaving it to Sir Dennis Byron to decide how he's going to carry out his work here in Dominica. Obviously, I suspect he may have a lot of these consultations via Zoom or the such medium, recognizing the travel restrictions and the social distancing measures which all our countries, including Dominica, have in place. But I'll leave it to the second question. The caller is talking about whether the Canadian law.
You see, the Canadian law is of persuasive authority in our jurisdiction. In our system, we would have the courts that comprise the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. We would have the High Court and the Court of Appeal. And then we go to we used to have the Privy Council, which we no longer have, so we go to the CCJ. So that's the sort of hierarchy of courts that we have. But Canada being part of the Commonwealth and having had the same system of common law as we started, being informed by British law and having a common law system, our courts here would apply decisions from the Commonwealth, which has the same sort of system of law that we have. So a decision from Canada would be of strong persuasive authority in our jurisdiction. Yes.
Okay.
And interestingly, PM, the Commonwealth reports have been used by all parties as the basis to criticize or to endorse the electoral process in Dominica.
Yeah.
So if we use that, the Commonwealth thing, as the Commonwealth reports, then why would one have a difficulty with a decision from Canada, which is also part of the common law system, the Commonwealth system? Yeah.
Now, Mr. Lawrence, we've heard much from the opposition parties and also from this organization called the Concerned Citizens Movement on the issue of electoral reform. What role do you believe these groups should play in the process of electoral reform?
Well, certainly the opposition has a clear role in on the issue of electoral reform. They are part of the parliamentary process, and they have a contribution to make in the parliament. The other group, being in civil society, they also have a part to play. My concern, however, is that I have seen some publication and expression of opinions from them, which is in some sense misguided, in other senses ill-informed, and it will do very well if those opinions could be corrected, so that when they seek to, because the fact is, the public listens to those voices. But if those voices are not properly informed, then the public is misguided.
So we have the draft legislation that we've had around for some years now. So your view would be that those parties should look at the legislation.
Right.
And, okay, we have a caller, please. Hello, caller, please. Good evening to you. Welcome.
You could take on Dominica from me, but you could take me out of Dominica, but you can't take a Dominica out of me, right? And I want you to know that 5 years thing, right? We're gonna get rid of that. We need to in Dominica. It's in tree. It's not all of around. So we can get people come to tell me what we go.
So, okay, so I think the caller was echoing the sentiment expressed by you.
That's right.
Of the removal of this 5-year restriction.
Yeah, and that should be removed, yeah, because 5 years come very quickly. An election cycle turns around very quickly. And you have persons, even now, for example, you have this COVID thing. We don't know how long this COVID is going to last. And some persons might be overseas and they might get ill, or their family might be ill here. They might be sending financial resources to assist their family here. And instead of traveling back home, they may be making the sacrifice for their family here. Why then could they support their family in Dominica but not vote?
I mean, we look to the United States for many things,
right,
and guidance on many issues. Obviously, it's the largest economy in the world. You know, I mean, they've done well for themselves as a nation in less than 250 years. You know, so they are a reference point for a number of the things that we do in many parts of the world. But in the United States, they do have voting by mail.
That's right.
So they're Dominican citizens, naturalized citizens who receive, and also American
in Dominica,
American citizens in Dominica who receive the ballots by mail,
right,
and vote.
And even British persons who reside in Dominica, they also get the documents are mailed to them. The fact of the matter is, PM, when we had the Commonwealth of Observers who filed a report after the 2014 elections, and that report is accepted, I think, by everyone. And there is a part of the report which I wish to quote. It says that the law is very clear on the issue of voter ID cards and voter registration. The mission believes, however, that there is a logical and even necessary debate which Dominicans need to have if residency is to remain a requirement and qualifying factor to exercise the franchise. And this is where I think the debate has to be had, because are we going to say then that you can only exercise your franchise if you are resident? Or are we going to say that you can exercise the franchise once you have a real and continuing connection with the country, being a citizen? Because if you are overseas, but you're sending remittances, you are supporting your family, and in this day and age, everything is virtual. So you don't have to travel as often as you did in the past for you to show that you have a connection with the country. So one has to, I think, redefine the residency issue.
Yeah. Okay. Caller, please. Hello, good evening. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I just want. What?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a question. Why do you want to give one man $250,000 for advice which you get him for free already?
Yeah, that's an important question. And as you recognize, my friend, I mean, we've been debating this electoral reform for many years now. I recall when Mr. Ron Green was leader of the opposition, I proposed in the parliament, and you can go under the research in the parliament, in the Hansards, that we should form a bipartisan parliamentary committee to sit and to discuss the issue of electoral reform. And at that time, we had a huge debate over whether we should go with national ID cards or we should go with voter ID cards. That was not entertained. The fact is, we have not been able to get consensus on what needs to be done. People say generally, in a generalist fashion, that we need electoral reform, but what does that mean? How do we define that process? What actions do we need to get this process going? Now, the government is of the view, and based on advice, that we need legislative authority to give effect to the issue of the national ID cards, and also the other actions which the Commission would need to take. The Commission had gone through this legislation, they satisfied themselves with it. We brought in an independent arbiter, the Commonwealth Secretariat, legal counsel there, to go through the legislation, and they reported, and the report is available to the public, it has been made public, that the law certainly meets the requirements, and the law is absolutely necessary. So the purpose of Sir Dennis is to seek to bring this continued independent perspective on the independent perspective on this electoral reform process. And so that when we have somebody who is removed from the political process in Dominica, somebody who is not a voter in Dominica, somebody who has no interest but the good governance of our country, would submit this recommendation, my hope and prayer, and I'm sure that of many, or the vast majority of Dominicans, is that we can accept it. So the real purpose of Sir Dennis is to act as this sole arbiter who can engage the various stakeholders, independent of each other or jointly, as he determines. And out of those consultations, out of the review of all of the processes of the draft legislation, then we expect him to submit a report to us, which will be made available to the public and which we hope all of us will accept. So this is essentially the reason why we've had to engage Sir Dennis. The hope is that he can assist us in finding consensus on this very important matter.
For example, PM, one of the matters I'm hoping that Sir Dennis will look at is the issue of how do you remove someone from the list? Because under our laws now, once you are registered, you have the right to vote. Persons have been advocating that if you're not here for 5 years, the list should be cleansed and your name should just be removed. But that is not possible because even under the law now, there must be a process. You have a right to be heard. There has to be due process before your name is removed. And the other issue that has to be done is how do you issue an ID card? Do you have to come here to get an ID card? Does the commission have to go overseas to issue an ID card? So Sir Dennis can assist us in having some agreement or some consensus on how this process is done.
And just to make it clear, I mean, we're not advocating, certainly I'm not advocating electoral reform because there has been any evidence of fraudulent activities in our elections. I mean, our elections in Dominica, both pre and post-independence, have all been conducted freely and fairly.
That's right.
I mean, there are parties that have better strategies and better approaches to canvassing and campaigning and have captured the hearts and minds of the Dominican people and, of course, the votes. But we believe that every so often, you need to review a system.
That's right.
And to determine what can be done to improve upon it and to catch up with international best practices. And it is a best practice to have this review done and to upgrade the electoral process in our country to bring it to the 21st century. We have a caller. I'll come to you, Lennox, in a while. Caller, please.
Minister, good night.
Hi, good evening to you.
Yes, sir. Lennox, how you doing?
Okay.
Very well.
That sounded like Anthony Wadi Astafan, Senior Counsel.
It is, and from the distant parish of St. John's Antigua.
St. John Antigua. All right, that's Faber Bronx country.
Well, Dominica and Antigua is one the same.
That's right.
Glenn, I have a couple of comments. And first of all, I need to tell you that I don't think there's any other way that this process could have been implemented or executed other than by having someone of the prominence of Sir Dennis Barrett, former Chief Justice of the OECS, former President of the CCJ, and former head of the International Court of Justice in Tanzania, and somebody who is in high demand, and with the full transparency of public consultations, and I'm sure there's the opportunity to make representations on reform, and I think that's the troubling part for the opposition. Sunlight has a terrible way of killing darkness, and I think that's what they're afraid of. I want to make a couple of other comments, but Lennox said something about connection, that we should not continue with the existing law, that if you don't visit the country at least once in the last 5 years, you could be removed off the list. I think the test should be that applied by the Supreme Court in Canada of a connection to the country, remittances, people who can't come because of jobs or school or illness, but have fundraising functions in their garages and their businesses for us whenever we have an earthquake or a hurricane, because there's a tremendous amount of Dominicans who help us, but can't travel at least once a year, once every 5 years. And I think the other thing that I am sure we will ask the Commission to address is the issue of the process for petitions. The rules, the legislation and rules are outdated, even though made in 2014, because the rules copied the constitutional rules that we have existing in the United Kingdom. And as the Court of Appeal said in your matter in Tonight, something needs to be done by Parliament to prevent frivolous claims from being brought to the election jurisdiction in court. And there is the other point Lennox made about, they keep complaining about tweeting and bribing, which they've never been able to do. But one of the grounds upon which somebody's election can be set aside is if he deliberately and intentionally makes false defamatory statements against a candidate. Now, Prime Minister, I am not sure what you have in mind. We have not discussed it, but I am firmly of the view that should the Labour Party put proposals to this commission in the top 5, has to be a provision like that. And my final point here, because I don't want to take up the time, you asked Lennox about the powers of the Electoral Commission and that of Sir Dennis Barrett. Permit me to assist in educating the public this way. The Electoral Commission has very strict rules and procedures to comply with. And the only authority they have to make regulations is to give effect to the existing provisions of the Act. They cannot, by a new regulation, amend the Act, purport to amend the Act, insert a new procedure, a new process. That power is vested in the Parliament, not under Section 40 for peace, order, and good governance, but in Section 51, which created a specific law-making authority in the Parliament to make laws for the registration of voters and for the conduct of the elections, subject to only one condition precedent, which is giving the Electoral Commission and the Chief Elections Officer the opportunity to comment on the proposed legislation. So, to put it in practical terms, the Commission could not retain somebody like Dennis Byron to commit a wide-ranging review to public consultations, to give effect to electoral reform, which in effect is going to mean, as you would know from your previous experiences with the bill, leading to either amendment, replacement, or repeals of the existing Act. And it is now settled law that the Cabinet has the authority to appoint individuals, especially of the standing of Sir Dennis Byron, to review, to look at, to consult, to review, and to make recommendations for the consideration of the Cabinet, for the Cabinet to be able to make a decision on what, how many, if all, if not all, some of the regulations or the recommendations which the Cabinet may wish to say. And I can end by saying, Prime Minister and my dear friend Lennox, I have been involved in election matters in most of the OCS countries, now Trinidad and Guyana. There is no other government, I think, that has taken the bold step of having someone of the standing, independent, impartiality, competence, and intellect, like Sir Dennis Byron, to conduct so sensitive a matter. And it was a bold and great and tougher move, considering the constant threats of violence and the frivolous applications for injunctions that the others have filed in the court to be really reformed. Now they're complaining, still no reform, and now they're complaining about Sir Dennis Byron. So, Prime Minister, from a shore, far away from you, I say good night to you and Lennox.
Good night,
and to all of my friends at home.
All right. Thank you, Senior Counsel. Thank you for this intervention. Lennox, you thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yeah, indeed, PM, because now government has put the issue of election reform up front and center. And no one can now accuse the government of not discussing electoral reform. See, and what is happening now, there is no better a person. So one could not say, well, let us put Sir Dennis aside and get someone else. You have the best mind. You see, so clearly now, what is left to criticize?
And I think, especially the political parties, the Labour Party, the UWP, I mean, I would mention the Freedom Party as well, though I am effectively the leader of the Freedom Party. Being an old Freedomite myself, so I am assuming the leadership of the Freedom Party, so we need to document our submissions to Sir Dennis, because my concern is that you will have a continued flip-flopping and misinformation. People will say one thing in a private room, and when they go out there on a radio program, they'll say something diabolically contradictory to what they would have said, and so forth. So I'm hoping that we all can submit so that there can be transparency in the process, and people can get us to account for that which we have submitted in writing.
You see, and what would also happen with the engagement of Sir Dennis, the issue of electoral reform and really what it is, I think would even be clarified a lot better than it is now. Because, and I need to just repeat what I said earlier, one thing I said earlier, electoral reform is not just limited to the cleansing of a list. And the Electoral Commission does not have the legal right just to cleanse a list without giving voters, registered voters, the right to be heard, the right of appeal in this matter. Additionally, the Electoral Commission does not have the legislative authority under this Act to issue ID card in the manner which is being proposed. So there needs to be a framework for that. And so in my view, there is no conflict between the consultative process that Sir Dennis will undergo and what will then go before the Commission in order to have its constitutional functions being done.
Yeah. Now, we spoke about the engagement of opposition parties. Which are the entity and individuals you believe that that Sir Dennis should consult?
Well, the churches always, well, I almost said always have a voice, very often have a voice. You have the I don't know if we still have a Chamber of Commerce. We used to have a Chamber of Commerce.
The DIC.
The DIC,
Yeah,
but they have been so quiet sometimes. So they.
I think in recent time they've been very vocal. We had Mr. Kenny Green, and I believe now we have Stephen Lander as
right. So now would be a good time to call them out. I think as well, PM, we need to bring in our educational institutions. We need to bring in the University of the West Indies, the State College. They need to, they need to be part of the process, because UB is connected to the intelligentsia of the region, and they can add to that process. And also the State College, because a number of our, 90% of our young people of college age attend the State College. And these are the young voters or the to-be voters who must understand the electoral process. So the State College should be part of it.
Now, we usually speak of electoral reform in a very cold and a technical term. How do we make this more comprehensible for the entire population going forward? I mean, so that all our citizens can appreciate what is it we're talking about.
What I would suggest, PM, is that we do what I almost said town hall meetings, but that's not very possible now with this COVID. We do not know how long COVID is going to be around. So we need to have some sort of discussion along the town hall framework, getting to the communities on the ground, something like what we did when the West Indian Commission was in Dominica. When we were going to have this commission and they came to Dominica and they went to every village and village council and school and so forth. that people on the ground would understand what we're talking about is how the voting process can be enhanced. What we're talking about is how you can better safeguard your right to vote. How your family overseas, who are part of the process of developing the country, can remain part of the electoral process in Dominica. So we need to have that kind of grassroots consultation, in my view, so the man on the ground will understand.
So, yeah, so we're going to have stakeholder consultations and other public engagements in the weeks and maybe months ahead as Sir Dennis undertakes his duties. What is your hope, though, for the outcome of this activity over the next months and ultimately the achievement of our electoral reform in Dominica?
What I'm hoping, PM, is that we could have some consensus on two things.
So let us set aside what we agree on,
Right.
and let us debate that which we have not found consensus.
Yes. So after the outcome would be, we'll be able to say, listen, guys, these are the fundamentals. We all agree on what the fundamentals are. The fundamental, in my view, must be...
Let us hold your thought, please. Let's take a call. Caller, please. Good evening. Hello. All right, we'll ask that question.
Yes, sir. So, yes, PM. So one of the fundamentals must be that we have the right to vote. Because in 1951, we got that franchise. All of us could vote, and it was not limited by how much property we had and what family we came from. And the exercise of the franchise must be safeguarded. So whatever we do must be within that framework, within that context. That is the first thing I'm hoping we could agree on. And the second thing that we should then have to debate is what do we not agree on? And what we might not agree on is how far the persons in the diaspora, would be allowed to participate, what would qualify, what would disqualify. That would be a valid debate. So one could say, for example, 5 years out, let us maintain the system how it is. Another one could say, no, 10 years, 15 years. Or we could say, once there is a connection with the country, we can show a real connection, as was done in Canada. We're not going to disenfranchise people. We're going to use the principle of enfranchisement. And that is where I think whatever disagreements we have, that we could use that particular principle to solve those disagreements.
Sure. Okay. Any final thoughts? Are there any points that you'd like to draw to the public's attention?
Well, the final thought, PM, is that what I would say, two things. The first thing is the issue of electoral reform had been limited to too few a matter. The matter number one of ID card, and the matter number two of cleansing the list. The Commission cannot just cleanse the list without giving people the right to be heard and the right of appeal, because they're on the list and they have the right to vote. The Constitution guarantees the right to vote. So we have to now disabuse our mind of this thing that the Commission can just walk tomorrow and just cleanse the list. Doesn't happen that way. The only way they can cleanse the list in that manner is if you're dead. You have no right of appeal, at least not in that life anyway. So, and the second thing is the issue of voter ID cards. The Commission cannot just give a voter ID card or determine who gets a voter ID card, because the law as it is does not empower the Commission to do that. Parliament must intervene, and we must allow the parliamentary process to go ahead.
Good. Now, there's a question there from WhatsApp. It says, good night, Mr. Lawrence. There has been a recent movement in the international community to reduce legal voting age to 16. What do you think about this?
Well, my views are mixed, but I would say I have no difficulty with the 18-year, though you have some very bright 16-year-old, but I'm not sure if and you have more and more younger and younger persons getting involved in the process. But At 18, I think that's where persons want to engage themselves in
So you're okay with age 18?
Yes, yes, I'm okay with that. Yes.
Telephone call, please.
Hello, good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
I was trying to get through to when you were speaking about who can be engaged with
Sure.
the gentleman for speaking about voting, voting groups that they can engage.
Yes.
Now, what I'm looking at, we are having an aging population. So, thinking of the Dominica Council on Aging.
Sure.
It's true we're talking about electoral reform, but a lot of elderly people have voted or their votes have gone where they did not
Everybody,
want.
every opinion counts, my friend. You know, so I agree with you entirely. Every opinion counts. So this has to be a national engagement of a wide cross section of the society.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure. Okay. So that point is taken. We accept this.
Yeah, also, PM, the fact that a lot of this, the issue of ID card and the cleansing of the list has to do with overseas voters, we should engage that group in a very real way, because they might be the ones who might be affected. Yes, yeah.
Sure. Okay. Well, we have come to the end of this segment, and I want to thank you, Mr. Lawrence, for making the time to help with the education process. We will take a let me see, there's a WhatsApp call question. It says, this might be your closing points on this point there, so it's a long question. It says, good night, PM. I recall in one report from an observer mission, the call for the removal of the strictness of using an X rather than a mark, once the mark clearly identifies who the voter intends to vote for. So a tick or any other symbol, as long as they do not write a word or use an alphabet to indicate who they are. I would love to see that taken up, so we will have less spoiled ballots. What are your views? My personal views, I agree with you. Let's get our guest.
Well, PM, I have been to a number of the recounts, and you'll be amazed at what you see in those recounts. Sometimes people try to do graphics. Sometimes they try all sorts of things. So I have no difficulty with the X being maintained. It's an simpler process, and it expresses to the recounts I've been to, one can see the intent of the voter very easily expressed. Otherwise, people become creative, and you do not know where it ends.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're writing this X and you end up doing it like a T or something.
No. That is accepted generally. People do not, at the recounts, I have never seen that as an issue.
Okay. That question, we can skip that question. That is taking the discussion in a different realm. So I will pass on this one. But thank you very much. We will take a short break, and I will come back for the final segment of tonight's annual parliament. And I want to thank Mr. Lawrence for making the time. We appreciate this, and certainly this is a discussion we'll continue to have over the next several months as we seek to bring a closure to this way in advance of the election. And I think the government is remaining true to its promise to the nation that it will give priority to this electoral reform process, and to do it very early, so we don't have to rush. We can take our time, and this is one of the advice coming from the observers, that this thing takes time, and you need to give it the appropriate time to have this process properly done, because you do not want to make any errors in this, and so the first several months in the government's term, we are putting this on the table to advance. And as the Prime Minister, I am firmly committed to the process. I would like for us to have consensus and to be true to ourselves and to be honest to ourselves and be honest with the people of Dominica. If we say we want it, then let us get it done. But we can't say we want it, and every attempt to get it done, we're stalling. This doesn't make sense. This is contradictory. And you have similar actions in making the monies available. We made monies available after Erica.
That's right.
A few months after Erica, when 2 communities had to be relocated, and we had to find homes for these people and provide them with all sorts of supplies, and several bridges were washed away, roads were washed away. So thank you very much. We will take a quick break and come back for the final segment. Thank you very much.
Very grateful to be here in support and solidarity to the people of Dalis and Petit Savan. As you know, we were here quite a few weeks ago, and we promised that there would be an intervention. And here we are today with a major intervention in terms of the engineering and the clearance and so on in this area. This road is approximately 4 kilometers long. As you know, a few years ago, after Tropical Storm Erica, we had quite a few landslides in this area, road slippages, damage to bridges and crossings and so on, and this road was completely impassable. Right now, I can safely say that we're able to freely traverse nearly 3 kilometers of that roadway, so this is quite significant. This is obviously a major investment by the government. Like the ministers have said before, we are in a global crisis, and yet the government sees it fit to have an intervention here in this area to ensure that there is redundancy in our road network, and the people of Dalis and Petit Savan have a viable alternative in terms of road access, access to service, access to health, and so on. As you see, many of the drains have been blocked. We have the guardrails, they have been significantly damaged. So safety is obviously of concern in this. There are quite a few bridges that need to be reinstated, and we have undertaken the assessments. Our team of engineers are here today. We have quite a few staff from the ministry. They have been there to oversee the works of the 2 excavation contractors who have been in this area. They've been doing really good work, so I want to say good job to them, and thanks for the support. They were able to mobilize 1 day after we gave them the call, so thanks to these contractors for doing a fantastic job in this area. But there's a lot more to be done. We expect to be here for quite a number of weeks to come, but at the end of this all, we will ensure that the people of this area have a safe carriageway, a safe road network that they can traverse on. So thank you once more. Thank you for the patience of all of the people of the East. Thank you for the patience with the process. But I can guarantee you all that after we are done in this area, it will be very, very, very safe, and will certainly increase the convenience and level of service to all of you.
Hello and welcome back to our Anupale program. To the final segment, I would first wish to extend sincere condolences to Dr. Idolin John and her family on the passing of her husband, our friend Victor. Victor originally from Grenada, but made Dominica his home over several decades. I knew him personally, a sincere comrade within the Labour Party, and certainly we are saddened by his death. But rest assured of our prayers and our support in this very difficult and trying time. I also wish to extend my sincere condolences again to the Greenaway family of Wesley. Yesterday, we laid to rest the mortal remains of Mr. Kwame Greenaway, a stalwart gentleman in Wesley, a very respectable and respectful citizen, who I knew very well, and I always consider myself privileged to have been in the company and to receive the guidance and advice from people like Mr. Greenaway whenever I had the occasion to visit him in Wesley. I always had some very strong advice and encouraging words, and I was happy to have been part of the celebration of his life at Wesley yesterday. And I wish his family and his wife in particular 70 years together. They were 70 years together. This is a major milestone, and we wish her We pray that the good Lord of the country give her the courage and the strength to deal with this major loss of a life and in a life. Today we witnessed the inaugural flight of Caribbean Airlines into Dominica. This is very important, especially with the challenges that we've had in airline services in the Caribbean region, especially in this COVID period. And so we want to thank the Caribbean Airlines, the chairman and of course the board of directors for the decision to come in. We've been engaging in discussions for some time now, and we're happy that finally they're here. And I know it is something that Justice Volney has advocated for and made representation for many years now, and so his sojourn to Dominica will be much easier, being facilitated by Caribbean Airlines with direct flights, and so we look forward to a very strong partnership with Caribbean Airlines as we seek to improve on air access into Dominica in the medium term as we work towards the construction of our international airport. I also participated in the Carnival weekend of activities. Normally it's supposed to be a week of activities, but COVID, they had to truncate it to a weekend, the 1930 uprising led by Jolly John and the brave warriors of the Carnival community. And my submission to the ceremony on Friday afternoon is that we should seek to make this a national event. We should make this celebration a national event where we can have national participation and there can be a better appreciation of the contributions which the Carnival people have made to our development. I mean, I don't think we credit the Carnival people sufficiently for our attainment of independence, even the freeing of African slaves. I mean, the Carnagos work very closely with the Negmao, the runaway slaves, and the former strong alliances in the defense of our patrimony against colonialism and imperialism in current days. And so we also need to document, in my view, our history. Dr. Nelson has done a fantastic job in that regard, but there are lots of additional things I believe that we need to put, and history has to be part of our school curriculum. You know, I mean, I said at the function, you know, I mean, how do we go to and we study the partitioning of Poland and we know of the despots like Joseph and all these people and so on, and we do not know our Dominican history. And we have to make history part of the school curriculum and school timetable at primary and secondary school. People without a knowledge of the history will not know where they're going. And therefore we need to get people to know our history and to appreciate where this country has come from. And I think if we know our history, we'll appreciate much more what is happening in Dominica today. You know, and so it is something that we really need to look at very seriously. I also visited the Daly Spirit 7 Road. We have made efforts to complement the efforts of the residents of Dalis in clearing these roads, and so now you can in fact drive from Dalis all the way to Piditsavan. There's a section close to where Chief of Police Daro's mother resided, where the gulch got washed away there, but we're creating a bypass, so you can in fact drive through. Now, you know, we will not encourage people to go sightseeing at this stage because, you know, we're still doing some clearing. But we'd given a commitment some years ago that we would seek to allow for access, you know, between Dalis and Piditsavan. You know, so that's what we were doing. And I want to commend the Minister for Public Works, Honorable Lafield, and Honorable Dr. Daru, the Member of Parliament for Piditsavan, and my friend and colleague, Honorable Kent Edwards, the Member of Parliament for Dalis, for their leadership and for their efforts in advancing this particular action. And in addition to this, we are spending significant amounts of funds on the improvements of the road surface between La Plaine and Dalis. A lot of work has been done, and I'm very happy with what has been done thus far. I have made certain observations along with the Power Rep, and I've given the Minister of Public Works further instructions to cause there to be additional interventions to improve the roads. But nobody can contest that if you compare the road 2 months ago to what it is now, there has been a dramatic improvement in this, and people can drive through from La Plaine to Dalis with no difficulty whatsoever. And I have received numerous text messages from residents of Dalis who have expressed the thanks to the government, to the Power Rep for this very important intervention. Also, I held discussions with the DHTA and the DIC, along with other government agencies, on having consultations with regards to the protocols for tourists coming into Dominica. Very constructive engagements. We were able to find consensus on the protocols that we should put in place for tourists coming in, because the fact of the matter is, as we've said, we know COVID is going to be with us for the next 2 years, as the WHO has indicated. And how do we find responsible, safe approaches and protocols and guidelines that everything can coexist? Because we have to ensure that as far as practically possible, we allow for economic activity to take place. People can go back to work full time. We can allow visitors to come into Dominica, tourists to come into Dominica in a safe way. And I think the conclusions which we had last week would allow us to get this going. Would allow us to get us going. And I look forward to the implementation of these new protocols, the new guidelines. Our hope is that the stakeholders, because at the end of the day, we all have to play our part. We all have to play our part to ensure and to assure the safety of our population. And I give the DHTA and the DIC the assurance that this process of consultation will continue, mutually respectful, and an understanding of the government's perspectives and an appreciation for the perspective of the private sector. And by this respectful engagement, we can certainly find consensus, because we all, I know, would want the best for our country. But there are times we may look at it from different vantage points. Just to update you again, we are making progress on the international airport. As I've indicated to you, this is occupying a lot of my time, and I am personally leading the process towards the international airport, and to ensure that we advance the actions. So great progress is being made on this. We are finalizing negotiations with several property owners. We have started the process of paying property owners for their properties, and that will be an ongoing process. We will start the construction of residences for some people who will be affected in the next couple of weeks, and that will take about 6 months or so. And we have been getting tremendous cooperation and collaboration from property owners in this, and we're very grateful for this. And we are confident of our ability to finally have this international airport for our country. We had serious investments in tourism, with increase in hotel rooms, increase in the presence of 5-star hotels in Dominica, international brands as well. And I believe we need to ensure that we can sustain those investments. And agriculture, there are tremendous potential in agriculture, but how do we get our fruits and vegetables or flowers to the marketplace quicker? Clearly, we cannot rely on the cargo vessels for this. We have to look at other options in getting this, and I believe the presence of the international airport will no doubt enhance our agricultural export prospects, and of course, job creation. So there's a strong case to be made as to why we believe that international airport is important for Dominica. And of course, we know of the vulnerabilities to the natural elements of the Douglas Childs Airport. I mean, we've had to divert the river when we were doing the expansion and improvements to the airport at the time. This airport was severely impacted by Tropical Storm Erica. We spent over $150 million to repair the airport. I mean, how often can we spend $150 million to repair an airport? And so the location for the international airport would certainly be much safer and would not be subjected to this threat of continued or continuous flooding and so forth. And I think we owe this project to future generations. And I am working, I can tell you, diligently on this project. And very soon I'll be in a position to make certain definitive announcements and pronouncements on this. But we are engaging a whole wide cross-section of stakeholders. This week coming, God's willing, I will also meet with some private sector stakeholders to share with them where we are and to solicit their support in this regard. And the intention here is to look at broadening the membership of the technical committee that will help oversee this airport. And we're discussing within the government even the possibility of creating an airport development authority, which would be a statutory entity to oversee the development of the airport. Because as you know, we in the government system, we can be a little bit slow and bureaucratic, and we do not want this project to be affected by the historical and current bureaucracies which exist in the public service. So we're looking at this, and we hope to take a decision on this very soon. I think I will end here on this point, just to say to you that we have to continue working together. This period is very difficult for all of us in this country and the world over. COVID-19 has been a very difficult occurrence, but we have to press on, and we can overcome our challenges by working together. And we must not allow our faith in the Lord and ourselves and our country to be diminished. This is a time for us to renew our commitment to our country and to renew our faith in the Lord, because He has assured us that He shall never leave us nor forsake us. And if we believe this, then we should not allow challenges to cause us to give up on life and to give up on ourselves and to give up on our country. All of us, or many of us, give up on Dominica after Hurricane Maria because of where we were and what we were brought down to. We were all brought down to our knees by Maria. It destroyed all our homes. It washed away our earnings, what we worked so hard for. It destroyed our businesses. And we are the view that we will never bounce back. And the question is, where are we today? And there's so many things that we can be grateful for post-Hurricane Maria. There's so many things that we can be thankful for. And so let us not be discouraged and so forth. And as your leader, as your prime minister, I am not discouraged. It is a difficult task, I will admit. But, you know, we cannot get daunted. We can't be daunted by tasks. We have to work harder. We have to sleep less, sleep less. Every time I tell people to sleep less, people are laughing and smiling, saying, boy, I have to take my 10 hours sleep or my 8 hours sleep, and people put the alarm and, unless they don't hear this alarm, they're not waking up and so forth. And so we have to be more diligent in what we do. Now is the time as employees that we cannot be forming the fool. We have to be punctual. We have to give our employers a fair day's work. now is the time for you to show your employer, to demonstrate to the employer how grateful you are that you have a job, and go the extra mile. We don't have to be parking our bags and minutes to fall. Let's stick around. Let's ask our boss, man, is there anything else that you need me to do, and steady. Because when we go, most of us, we're going to watch television anyway, Netflix and all these 100+ channels that we have these days. And, so now is the time for us to be diligent, and to engage in community activities. We have to be more engaging. We have to always ask ourselves, what message is the Lord sending to the world, and question our own contribution, do our own introspection. But I will end this after 8. I don't want to take any more time beyond 8 o'clock. But thank you again for being with me tonight. I look forward to being with you again next Sunday, God's willing. I will be in Grand Bay, I believe, on Wednesday. We handed over keys to 30 families. And I look forward to being part of this ceremony where 30 families from Wednesday afternoon will no longer be in any vulnerable circumstance. And I give the Grand Bay people the assurance that we'll continue with the housing revolution and ensuring that families are given the opportunity to live in better homes with better sanitation. Thank you very much. God bless. Let us go forth and serve our country and to serve our Lord. Thank you and good night.
We are in the hurricane season. Here are some tips to keep your families and communities safe. Before a hurricane, ensure that you know your emergency shelters. Contact the Office of Disaster Management for information on shelters closest to you. Have disaster supplies on hand, non-perishable canned food and water, portable battery-operated radios, flashlights and extra batteries, essential medicines, first aid kits, cash and bank cards. In the home, protect your windows. A low-cost approach is to put up plywood panels. Trim branches away from your home and cut all dead or weak branches on any trees on your property. Check into your home and auto insurance. Confirm that policies are valid and coverage is appropriate. Make arrangements for pets and livestock. Develop an emergency communication plan. Make sure that all family members know what to do. Teach family members how and when to turn off gas, electricity, and water. During a hurricane watch, listen to the radio or television for hurricane progress reports. Avoid open flames such as candles and kerosene lamps as a source of light. If power is lost, turn off major appliances to reduce power surge when electricity is restored. Store drinking water in clean jugs, bottles, and cooking utensils. During a hurricane warning, if you need to evacuate your home, lock up and go to the nearest shelter. Take blankets or sleeping bags to the shelter. Listen constantly to a radio or television for official instructions. Store valuables and personal papers in a waterproof container on the highest level of your home. Stay inside, away from windows and glass doors.